I finally understand the phrase, when you know, you know. I, 24 female, really just want to gush my heart out and tell y'all my story, but it's very, very long because it's just so full of amazing moments. My two best friends recently just got into a relationship in January through the first or second people they met on dating sites, and I was just like, how? I've met so many people and they've all just either been nice or awful for me. I had just about given up. I had a few people I was talking to. One was incredibly funny and friendly, but he seemed more like a buddy than a potential partner, and the other was a dude from the army who was nice and all, but just not my type. Anyways, to cut the long story short, my monstrous satanic nephew came to stay with me for the weekend to learn English, and I had to keep him busy and occupied. So I asked the guy, who I thought of as a buddy, if he wanted to hang out and give me company while I babysat that little shit. Think Dennis the Menace, but worse. Mind you, I had never met this dude before. We met for pizza, and that kid didn't miss a chance to embarrass me or that guy all night, and this guy took it like a champ. My nephew absolutely loved him. After pizza, we went bowling together and to the arcade, and the night was turning out to be just so perfect that I, a very shy girl who never ever makes a first move, just kissed the dude out of nowhere. I didn't even think about it, I just automatically did it. He seemed so happy though. After that, I took the guy home with me and my nephew to play board games, and he met my mom too on the first date. I never ever bring boys home, especially not at 1 a.m. He stayed and played games with my nephew and I until the kid was fast asleep and we finally got to talk alone. He went home at 6 a.m. that night. We've met every day since. He hung out with my nephew and I all weekend on purpose. I gave him so many chances to just leave, and he said, no, I want to hang out with you and your nephew, if you don't mind, which I just couldn't understand why. But I think he just liked me. Our first date was over 12 hours long. And on the first date itself, he said to me that kissing you just feels so right. And I couldn't agree more. Everything was just so right. I felt so comfortable with him. I finally felt like I met someone who I could be 100% myself around. And I also felt like I'd known him my whole life. I gave him the password of my phone and allowed him to get stuff out of my bag by the second date. I met his dad, doggo, and best friend since my nephew left, and we've just been gushing over each other over this past whirlwind week that feels like a bad rom-com. I'm just sitting on cloud 9 right now and I'm so happy. I just know that this one will go well.
Okay. All right.
No, there's
That's
an update.
Great. Back to me, my story.
No, there's
now?
an update.
Oh, that's not the end of it?
No.
No way.
4 years later.
Jesus.
We got married last year.
No middle updates like, hey, we're engaged.
Hi all, you most definitely won't remember me, but this is my post from 4 years ago. I was just going through my Reddit posts and found this post I had made after our first 2 dates where I basically wrote about how I just knew this was the guy. And I guess I was right because we got married a year ago. We are approaching our 1-year anniversary this week.
Woo!
Anyways, life since getting married has been bliss. I couldn't have asked for a better, more annoying partner, but I feel like every dream I've ever had about a happy married life with my perfect husband has come true. We are now a family, and I still can't get over that fact. He is my husband. I am a wife. What the fuck? I still can't believe it sometimes. I feel like I manifested the relationship, the proposal, the wedding, and the move to my favorite city where I always wanted to live. So yeah, life is great, he is great, marriage is great, I am very happy in life, and I just wanted to share this with the world. Thank you to the manifestation gods because they definitely exist, and I have been lucky enough to have used their powers, and I can confirm with every fiber of my being that manifestation works. Uploading 2 pictures. The first is our first week of dating, the second image is from our wedding day. I haven't seen these yet!
Cute pictures. Throw them up for YouTube.
Aww!
Manifestation does work.
Yes, it does. Oh, they're so cute.
It's the secret.
This story includes me, 19 female, Adam, 23 male, and Ian, 23 male. It all started in my first year of college. At the time I was 18 and I didn't really know anyone on campus, so I'd often be studying alone. I would explore different buildings on the campus and eventually made my way to one where I got comfortable. I found a spot and eventually started doing my own thing. Eventually I saw a guy come in and sit within the area I was studying who I thought was cute. At the time I had this challenge for myself where I would try to compliment at least 3 people a day to get out of my comfort zone. I noticed the guy had shoes that I've been wanting, but I didn't know the model. I took this as an opportunity to compliment his shoes and asked where he got them from. We made a bit of small talk and returned back to our studies. Some time went by and I saw in my peripheral view that the guy was packing his things to get up. I didn't think much of it until he started walking up to me to continue where we left off from our previous small talk. We then exchanged our names. For this story, we'll call him Adam, at the time 22, and I found out that he lived in the same area as me. Over time, we began making plans to meet up at cafes in our area and would hang out a lot. One thing that began bothering me though was that when he would arrive pretty late when we made plans to meet, going from 30 minutes late to an hour at times. I did bring this up to him and he would have excuses like his parents holding him up to talk to him at home before leaving, and he would say that this happened every time. We eventually talked it over and Adam said he'll do his best to be on time again. The lateness would repeat again. At one point, I got really fed up and decided not to initiate any conversations or engage with him. That went on for a month. Then the second semester began and he reached out to me again to hang out to study. At this point, I didn't really think of him as much until he reached out, so I decided to hang out again. We went back to meeting at cafes and such, but I noticed there has been more of a shift in our hangout. We would stay out pretty late. Several times we would meet at campus until 12 or 1 a.m. I noticed the way he would say things and pay for me at times for a coffee or a dessert. I started picking up as if these were him showing interest in me. We were spending a lot of time with each other. Towards the end of the semester, I reached out to him one more time if he wanted to study at a cafe again, and he mentioned that we didn't have to study every time we hung out. Following that message, we went out to eat some sushi, got mochi donuts, and stayed out simply talking. I started to grow more of an attraction towards him. One night he called me and asked if I wanted to see the Northern Lights. It was pretty rare for my area to get the Northern Lights, and I agreed to see it with him. He picked me up from my house. I had to sneak out, and we went to a park nearby. It was such a peaceful night, and although the lights weren't really visible, we simply just talked about life. I still remember the stillness of the pond and the coolness of the year. It was also midnight, and it was his birthday, so we sort of spent the first few hours of his birthday doing that. When he drove me back home, I decided to confess to him. I felt the feeling was mutual, so I shared everything I felt about him. Though we had to cut the conversation short because I had to sneak back into my house before my parents woke up for work. We eventually met up again at a parking lot because I reached out to him to run some errands with me. We made it to his car, and this was where everything shifted in our friendship. He shared how he had an attraction towards me as well, and we could start dating, but it would eventually have to end. I did not mention this before, but this is a brown guy coming from a Pakistani family. I'm not Pakistani. He stated that his parents would want him to end up with a Pakistani wife, so it would never work out between him and I. But he said he would also still be fine if we just stayed friends. When I heard that, my heart went into pieces. I was just so confused and said that I would get back to him about it once I've had some time to think about it. I remember crying the moment I hit my bed. After much thought, I decided that it would be best to stop talking to him. I just couldn't wrap my mind around the fact of why he would make certain moves as if he was attracted to me, say that he liked me, but then end up saying it would never work out. By this time, it was basically an 8th-month situationship. We met up again to talk at the same park where we saw the Northern Lights because I'd rather tell him in person about everything I felt about the whole situation. I still liked him, but I wanted to stop talking to him. We ended up sitting at a bench near a lake as we talked. Then I ended up having my first kiss with him. Everything became so complicated after that. We started doing some things that we shouldn't have done, especially as Muslims. I reverted about a year ago. I let him touch me in ways I shouldn't have let him do, and I felt so guilty throughout it all. I knew it had to end, but it was all so intoxicating. I stopped thinking straight. I was intoxicated with lust. One night we met up again and we were out really late. This was going to be the last night I ever saw him again. We met up at a park. Then I saw a bombardment of notifications on my phone. It was my mom. She was texting, calling, FaceTiming me. I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, so I didn't see it for a while. My mom and dad were threatening to call the police if I didn't get home, and it was just a horrible, horrible night. They told me to stay at the park until my dad got there to see me, even though I told them I was already on my way home. As I was waiting for my dad, Adam just drove off. I got home and I was yelled at, which I expected. I shouldn't have been out that late. Then I saw a text from Adam checking up on me. Being overwhelmed with emotions, I told him that we need to finally stop talking. He had a cold response, just saying things like, I guess it was just a waste of time then, and so forth. A few weeks after that, we were sort of back and forth. I would be blocking and then unblocking him. But then I just got so tired, so exhausted, and I knew it was time to finally let him go. He never saw anything serious with me, and I knew what I was getting myself into when I continued keeping contact with him after he told me it would never work out. I acknowledged that I brought all that hurt to myself. I didn't want to disrespect myself like that again. I wanted to move on, so I decided to download Salams, a Muslim dating app. Met some interesting people there, and honestly, I didn't think I would really find anything serious there. I suppose I was just trying to find someone because I felt lonely. As I said before, I am a reaver and I would have worries that no one would want to marry me because of my background. I told my parents that I reverted to Islam shortly after they found out about me being out late with Adam, and they were anything but accepting. My mom pulled my hair, my dad was about to throw something at me, and said it would be a disgrace to the family if I was actually serious about being Muslim. They also mentioned how my grandparents would be twisting in their graves because of my decision. They brought up about having me talking to a priest and taking me to therapy. None of that happened though. My mom talked about how she failed as a mother and should have kept me in Catholic school into my high school years. For context, I went to a Catholic private school until 7th grade and then switched up to a charter school. They think I'm just gullible and naive and just follow whatever my friends would say since basically all of them are Muslim, as well as the fact that the college I go to has a significant Muslim population. Going back to downloading salams, I would talk to a few guys here and there until I met one that really wanted me to set my act straight. This would be Ian. When we initially talked, I wanted to set the fact that I wanted to talk if marriage was in mind. He had some intention as well. We then asked questions to each other, such as how many kids we would want, where we would want to live, how we pray, our goals, and going about how I'm a reaver, and there would be a lot of issues that would come with that, especially with family. Pretty much the important questions to ask before marriage. He was all for it. He said he would be willing to work things through with me. I met Ian on the app 2 months after my situation with Adam. Ian has been so loving, caring, patient, kind, everything I wanted in a man. He has been so understanding with me considering my situation with my parents, and I have felt myself falling in love with him more and more after he confessed his love for me. He would call, text, FaceTime, keep each other updated with everything in our lives. He goes to the gym, prays, can make food, and is a family man, wants to grow in his deen. He has the qualities I would want in a man that I would marry. We both deleted salams shortly after meeting there. He has talked to his cousins, his brother, and friends about me, but he has yet to tell his parents. He mentioned that he would tell them a year from now or so because they want him to first complete his studies. He's currently in his master's program. I did ask about how they would react about him being with the reaver and was straight up about how yes, they would prefer him to be with someone of the same culture as well. He's desi, I prefer not to be specific. But as long as they are a woman who's educated and follows their deen as a Muslim, they would be accepting. We've been talking for about 3 months and he is easy to talk to. I can truly see a life with him. Yet I feel so undeserving of his love. I don't feel worthy of how kind and understanding he has treated me. Like I mentioned before, I met him 2 months after I stopped talking to Adam. And I felt so guilty for the fact that I would still think about Adam here and there while talking to Ian. Though I have no interest in engaging with Adam ever again. I still feel that way, and I feel so disgusted and disappointed with myself for still thinking about a guy who disrespected me. I never told Ian about Adam specifically, but I mentioned how I had a situationship with a person and kissed before. I didn't share exactly how recent it was, and he also shared that he was in a situationship as well and got intimate. For me, I don't have the expectation for a man to not have been intimate before, as I am not to that expectation myself. Back in high school, I used to be on an app called Yubo. Basically, you meet strangers online. During quarantine and after, I would meet random guys there. This was prior to me reverting, and I would do a lot of freaky calls, basically pleasuring myself while the person on the other side of the call did the same thing. I'd say this would be one of the lowest times of my life because I only ever saw value in myself from seeing another guy having sexual pleasure. I don't even know how many guys I did this with online, but I did it a lot and I'm disgusted and hate myself for it. I started doing this when I was 16 and honestly recently just stopped at 19, a few months before I stopped talking to Adam. I guess it was sort of daddy issues or something since my father has never shown a loving side of himself growing up, and because of that, I looked for attention and affection with male validation. I never told any of this to Ian, but I mentioned some of it to Adam while we were still talking. I suppose I would fall into this cycle whenever I would feel empty inside or was craving for male validation. I also want to share that I've had an issue with viewing explicit videos online and struggle with it. I know it's wrong, and I seem to have fallen into that cycle whenever I would feel to be at my lowest. I was first exposed to it when I was 9 years old. Even now, I still feel so disgusted with myself, and I still continue to struggle with it. In addition to being a reaver, I don't have a proper mahram, and that is a vital part if I want to get married. And I knew continuing talking to Ian was not right, as I'd often talk to him alone on the phone for hours. I want to add, whenever either of us would try to get into conversation that was not exactly halal, he would say that we could not continue in those sort of conversations until we're married. He said that he was really serious about me and he didn't want us getting into a haram conversation to make me think he was talking to me for another reason. I really wanted to make things right with him, so I would bring up to him that we need to stop talking, at least until we graduate and are prepared for marriage. It would be about 2 years from now since I'm an accelerated program for my major and he would graduate in 2 years as well. He would respect what I brought up and we could go a week or so not talking. But then I would always be the one initiating contact with him again and wouldn't respond. Then he would start talking again. This would happen another 2 to 3 times. We simply could not stop talking to each other. I brought up the situation to my best friend, who was Muslim, and she said if I really wanted to do this halal, we had to stop talking, especially with the fact that I'm not ready for marriage. I just sent him a message about everything I felt about us talking and for him to block me as I would be blocking him. He has my best friend's number as well as my brother's and told him if there is anything really serious to tell me about to reach out to either of them. By the way, I trust my best friend that she would not do anything sneaky as she has a man of her own. She is a sister to me. I have prayed istikhara about being with Ian and have been looking for signs. And the signs of solitude is the one thing I've been feeling ever since I started praying about the possibility of me and him being together. I know I have not been at my best and still not at my best. I really want to become a better woman and become worthy of being a wife to him. But I also understand if he is not for me and he ends up marrying someone else, it was simply not meant to be. I know if we are destined for each other, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will find a way to bring us back together. Forgot to mention he lives across the country from where I live, so I've never met him in person. But for now, I found it best that we go our separate ways. Honestly, I just want to become a better Muslim. It's been a year since I've reverted and I want to do what is best for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I have done horrible things in the past and I continue to repent for my sins, and I know I will make mistakes in the future. I suppose I'm just learning to forgive myself for the things I've done and get over the fact that I did what I did, and the only thing to focus on is to move forward. To learn how to simply love myself, flaws and all. Because despite the things I've done, I'm still deserving and worthy of that love, even when I don't feel that way. That's the dilemma I'm currently dealing with at the moment. I hope anyone who hears this and may somehow share a similar situation as I knows that they're not alone in any of this, and we are more alike than we are different. And though it may feel there is no turning back from the sins that have been done, know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. That wraps it up, and I wanted to share, and sorry if it's too long. Either way, I'm so grateful to have come across your platform.